All right. I want to welcome you to the Leesburg Public Library. My name is Elaine Kelly, and I work upstairs with the Adult Services Group here at the Leesburg Public Library. And today we're going to be talking about how to create pie charts in Microsoft Excel. I will be demonstrating how to create it. I will also then show you how you can then take the graph and actually bring it over and drop it into Microsoft Word, which will be another program that we have inside of the Microsoft Office suite. Now, before I begin, I do want to let you know that I did send everyone a second email, which contained all the materials for the class. So I'm going to go ahead and unpack that set just so you know what it is. The first item that I sent to you will be a copy of all of the presentations that we're going to look at. It has a copy of all the slides so you can make notes against it and also refer to it at a later date if you want to. All right, the second thing that I sent to you will be the instructions for everything that we do today. I'm aware that some people are just going to be watching today. So having the instruction sheet available to you when you start to actually create your own pie chart on your own time, this will actually walk you through and you'll know exactly where you're supposed to be after each individual step. Now, I do want to let everyone know that if you do run into any difficulties on your home project, you are more than welcome to give a call here to the library. And any staff member that picks up the phone will be happy to help you out. If you want to speak with me directly, just ask for me and they'll automatically forward you over to me. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. We're going to start with the PowerPoint presentation, which is what I want to talk to a little bit about what it is in general, some pluses, some minuses, and give you some tips about pie charts in general. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. So bear with me for just 1 second. I'm going to get into my PowerPoint. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start it. If at any time you have any questions, again, all you have to do is press your space bar. You will be temporarily unmuted. You can ask your question, and then when you release the space bar, you'll be back into a mute. But you're welcome to ask me questions at any point during our presentation. I just relocated my little graphic of our class. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Excel pie charts. And specifically what we're going to be going over is when to use them, the advantages, the disadvantages of this particular graph. Periodically, I'm going to tell you some tips. We're going to do a very quick Excel review, and then we're going to actually go into the nuts and bolts of our class, which is actually designing the pie chart. All right, what is a pie chart? As you see there on the right-hand side of your screen, this is just an example of 5 different categories of sports books that are available. It tells you in a very quick overall brush stroke as to where your main amount of books are concentrated. And in this particular case, it does give you the actual number of books versus the percentage, but you get the idea. It's a graphical representation of all of this information, and each pie slice equals a data point. The size of the pie slice represents the percentage. So if you consider you add all of these numbers together, and that becomes the total number of books. And then, like for instance, with the press books, you would have 18 out of that total, and it could also give you a percentage point. The chart can only show positive numbers. So that is one thing that you do need to keep in mind, that if you have data in your, whatever you're capturing, if it comes out to be a negative number, a pie chart is not the particular chart that you should be using to show that information. When do you want to use a pie chart? Pie chart is not useful in a lot of different applications. So you really want to be aware of when to use this particular type of graph. If you have very simple data, if you remember from the prior slide, we had just 5 categories, and all we wanted to know was how many do I have and what's the breakdown between each one. That's very simple to be able to present, and a pie chart can immediately portray this information over to your audience. In its simplest form, it is just a 2-dimensional circle divided into slices. It's like you're looking down on the information and you're seeing your pie slices on top of that. Think of a pizza box if you want to have something more concrete to imagine. It's a proportional or a percentage relationship. And that is important to understand, because a lot of times when we have our data together, we might be looking at something different, and what we want to create and present to people may not be a percentage amount that we want to show. We want to show actual numbers, but we want to show it in relation to something else. If you ever have to answer that question, I want to show this in relation to something, then the pie chart is not the one to use. All right, some advantages of using a pie chart. Again, it's proportional. The size can be made so it represents that quantity, and it can summarize a lot of data in a visual form. It is very simple. It does permit some visual checks of some reasonableness or some accuracy of the data, see whether or not you have some outliers, something doesn't make sense. And it also, and this is one of the key reasons people use it, is that it requires minimal additional explanation. And let me kind of elaborate a little bit on that. When you throw a pie chart up on a screen in front of an audience, people can immediately understand it. All you have to talk about is just the purpose of the chart, meaning that what is the information that you are describing. Your audience can already know just by looking at it what the percentages are, what is it in relation to something else that's on that pie chart, not in terms of comparison of one person to another, but in terms of, okay, here's all my books, this is my breakdown of my books. It's very easy to understand. All right, the disadvantage of using a pie chart is that it doesn't exactly reveal the true number. You have to, if you do put down your values, like for instance with that first pie chart we saw, you have to mentally total everything up. You will not have the ability to add a total on there unless you add a specific text box, which we will learn how to do today, onto the chart itself, so they don't have to do that process. These extra steps that you would have to do to be able to provide additional pieces of information for people to understand creates that extra difficulty with people truly understanding and capturing what they want to get from this document. Many charts, my pie charts may be needed to show changes over time. A pie chart in and of itself is a snapshot at one point. If you want to show a trend line, you'd have to show a very long series of them side by side. And all of that becomes very visually confusing to an audience. So a different type of graph may be better suited for that particular application. It does not reveal any key assumptions, causes, effects, or patterns. Again, a snapshot, boom, right there. If you're looking at to show that a particular time of year you have different levels of sales, a pie chart does not show that unless you were going to show overall amount of sales over a course of year, the total amount over 1 year, and you break it out seasonally. All right. But if you want to show it over time, over 5 years, you would better be suited with a line graph. And the last one, it can be easily manipulated to yield false impressions. There have been numerous examples out in the public arena in which people who have done presentations have enlarged one of the slices. So it appears that it is much greater or more important than the other pie slices on the graph. This can be very misleading if you're trying to persuade people that you've got a greater capture of a particular market than what you do. as well as it gives greater emphasis on that versus the other. It's very misleading to a person viewing it because they can get some false impressions. So be very careful with that. All right, there are 3 types of pie charts. First one is 3-dimensional, and this one definitely causes a lot of false impressions. The reason why, if you look at the example there on the right-hand side of your screen, we have the little pie wedge that's colored there in red, and it's elevated out a little bit, but it's also the closest point towards your audience. So as a result, they kind of focus on that, especially with the color. And the rest of the background, green, kind of fades into the background a little bit. Even though we recognize that it's a much bigger piece, we focus on the red, and we can actually elevate and create a bigger swelled area in that pie wedge versus what it truly is. Now, if you had more pie wedges on there, again, they would kind of fade away for the audience member, and we would continue to focus on that bright red. And if we had one that was very close in size to the red colored wedge, again, because it's in the back, we truly couldn't see it perspective-wise and be able to say, okay, this is actually truly the same size, and you have 2 causes of concern versus just the one that you want us to focus on. The 2-dimensional is one that we are very familiar with. This is the one that we kind of look from the top and look down on the item. Again, we have the same scenario of which the wedge is separated from the main portion of the pie a little bit. This case, it's just a variation in the same color family. But again, you can manipulate that 24% wedge to make it seem like it's a little bit bigger and force attention on it versus the rest. And the last type that we have is what's called a donut. And this is one that has the center portion cored out just like a donut, and all of your wedges per se are just around the rim of the circle. This works really well, especially when you want to put some sort of label inside the donut, just as you see here in our example. But it is much harder to appreciate the sizing of the wedges because, one, you have to look at the legend to find out what label goes with what color, as well as to keep comparing each of the wedges. You have to keep going around and around the circle to determine, okay, which one's is the largest, which one is the smallest, as well as with the 3 that are similar in size, the green, yellow, and red, any of those could easily be the same size, but we're not really sure. So at this point, we're going to switch over to Excel, and I want to just give a quick overview of what is it, as well as its relationship into the Microsoft Office package. All right, Microsoft Office is itself an entire service package of various different softwares that work together, and that is one of the key components of the Microsoft Office suite, is that the information from one can easily be transferred over into another via certain processes. We're actually going to see how we can get our graph over onto a Word document with a very simple cut and paste, as well as, but we could easily drop it and actually link it if we wanted to. Excel itself is a software tool that stores, analyzes, and reports data that you have inserted into it. Unlike the other software packages that you see listed here on the screen, Excel is truly designed for analysis. And in my opinion, it is also the best means to be able to create your charts. I have attempted to make charts inside of Word or PowerPoint before, and it's very difficult and very cumbersome. Versus Excel, it's extremely easy. I was be able to form my chart exactly how I want it to look, and then all I have to do is copy paste it across into the other documents. With the exception of PowerPoint, I use PowerPoint to create organizational charts. I've yet to be able to find a real easy way to do that in Excel, and PowerPoint already has it designed as part of its smart graphics. So that is the only time where I actually use the internal charting mechanism inside that particular software. Word, I go right to Excel and then just bring it across into it. Each one of these do talk to one another, and each one of these can also bring information across to one another. Some of the vocabulary just to keep in mind is that if you hear the term worksheet, you're talking one sheet, the visible sheet that you're working on at that moment inside of Excel, and it contains your text and data on that sheet. If you hear the term workbook, this means that you have two or more sheets inside a particular file. So you have something labeled sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3 down the tabs along the bottom, but the total name is called workbook. And a calculation is the same thing as the word formula. When we get into Excel, you're going to want to keep in mind some of these terms, because you will hear me refer to them, as well as whenever you have to call and report a problem with Excel, you should be able to use the proper vocabulary so people can figure out exactly where you are and what obstacle that you face at the present moment to be able to get you beyond it. So as an example of what we see here on our screen, this is the top portion of the Excel worksheet. And along the top, you see the tabs. In this particular case, we have File, Home, Insert, Page Layout, Formulas, Data Review, View, and Acrobat. And right now, the Home tab is visible because you see the little gray outline around it. That would be able to alert you that you're on that particular tab. When you do click on that, it unfurls a ribbon. Okay, and a ribbon contains all sorts of buttons and action items that allow you to do the work on your the below work area. And what you want to think about with this in the Home tab, these are all the most used action items inside of Excel. The other tabs that you see there are very specific things that you're going to be doing with it. So all those very uncommon activities would be over on those other tabs. They just don't occur as much as what you see available on the Home tab. But as you click on each one of these tab headings, a new ribbon unfurls and a new set of action item buttons are revealed. Immediately below the ribbon, you have the formula bar. This will allow you to see what you have truly typed inside of a cell, and a cell is down there in the work area below. You would be able to actually click on the formula bar to do any corrections if you had to. Immediately below the formula bar, this is your workspace. You have column labels, okay, which are the A, B, C, D. And you have the row labels down the left-hand side of your screen, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. A cell is the little blocks that you see down inside of the workspace. And to be able to find a cell, you want to think about it the same way as if you were going to do a map. When you would come over horizontally and you would come up vertically, wherever the two meet, this is where you would be looking for on a map. In Excel, you'd be coming across a row, down a column, and you'd be calling out that specific cell and doing something in. So for example, where the cell is now pointing to, it would be labeled F for that column label, F, and it would be in row 2. So it would be referred to as F2. Last thing I want to quickly review is the use of the mouse. Now, I do know that a lot of people are already familiar and use the mouse a lot, but I just want to put this out as a refresher. Your left mouse button is very action oriented. You're telling the system to do exactly what I want it to do at that moment in time. The right mouse button, if you click on it, will reveal hidden menus and give you alternative options that you can do on that particular cell at that moment. So at this point, I'm going to stop my share. And then I'm going to restart, and we're going to go directly into Excel at this point. So bear with me as I bring that up. Here we go. Right now, you're seeing that I'm on my Insert tab up here in the top, and this is my ribbon that unfurls. Immediately below here is my formula bar, and here's my workspace. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to enlarge my workspace a little bit, just so you have a better viewing of what I'm going to be doing. Unfortunately, I can't enlarge my ribbon, but what I have done is I have changed the color of my mouse cursor. I've put it with a red interior color, so hopefully that will show up on your screen. But when I do come down here into the work area of the form, it will change to a plus sign, but I cannot get that color to change. So I will be very slow and circle what I'm going to be doing first, and then I'll be performing the operation. So that way you can keep track of where I'm going to be, where I am, okay? All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to very quickly create some categories for ourselves, which will be represented as our data labels, and then put some numbers under it. And you'll see how easy it is to create a pie chart. So what you want to first do is you want to consider how to arrange your data. It is recommended that you either have them side by side, or they can be separated, but they must be in either columns or rows. And they do need to be adjacent to one another. So for instance, if I'm going to do, let's see, red, yellow, blue, green, orange. All right, I'm just going to put some numbers here. And if you've never used the fill function before, this is a wonderful feature. I use it quite a bit. What you do is you select the very first item that you want to have here, highlight the area that you want to create, either copy the same number or let text all the way down for the whole column that you have highlighted here. Or what the other option that you can do is when I click on fill, if you come down here to series, all right, you get this little pop-up here. It says in columns, yes, because that's how I've got it highlighted. I want to do a linear, and I want to do a step value of 1, and I can say OK. All right, and it automatically does all that action for you. Now, let's say we want to do something with a little bit different linear growth. I'm going to do 6. Do the same thing here under my home tab, under my editing group, my fill option. I'm going to do series, but let's say I want to change it from a step value right here of 1 to, let's say, 4. Hit OK, and it automatically adds 4 to the prior number and automatically fills it in for me. All right, so here's some information. Here's some data that we've got assembled here, and I want to create a pie chart and be able to manipulate a little bit. So we're first going to start with our column B and create a very simple chart for ourselves. So the easiest way to do that creation is first click on my first label, which is red. I'm going to hold down my shift key on my keyboard, and while I'm holding it down, I'm going to press here on my cell B5, which indicates that this is the final area of my data. I'm going to click it with my left mouse button. So that's an easy way to highlight everything onto your Excel. And then I'm going to go up here to my Insert tab here on the top of my screen, my top left. Change it to my Insert tab. A new set of tools has unfurled here on my ribbon. Right here in the middle, under my Charts button, you have all different sorts of charts. The pie chart is the one that looks like a little pie. And if I click on that, I get a small pick list where I can choose between a 2D pie, a 3D pie, or a donut. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and choose the 2D pie for the illustration purposes. All right, and as soon as I click that, I want you to notice that we get another set of tabs up here on the top, which are called chart tools. We have a design side, and we have a format side, and we have a new ribbon that has been unfurled. But of more importance is right here on our worksheet, we now see our chart displayed to us. Because I highlighted both the labels and the data points, it automatically puts it all together onto one chart for me. I do not have to go about relabeling or defining where those particular areas are. So say for instance, you decide, yes, this chart looks great, but I don't want it on the same page as all my data. If you're like me, you have a lot of numbers and statistics that you're capturing on a daily basis, and these might be my totals that are out there, but I don't want my chart to overlay on top of all of this information. I want to be able to very quickly find it, to be able to do something else with it. So if we don't want to keep it here on this page, or if we want to relocate it, but keep it on this page, what do we do? Right now, you see the chart is still highlighted. How do I know that? On the edges, you see these little circular expansion dots. All right, I'm just going to kind of circle a couple of them just so you see where I'm pointing towards. That means that the chart is available for us to edit at this particular moment. Now, what does it look like if it is not ready to be edited? All you have to do is click anywhere here on the other outside workspace, and you see those little expansion circles are no longer here on my chart. That means Excel is thinking you're going to want to try to be doing something here in cell A8, because that's where the little line is, highlighted line is around that cell. To come back onto the chart to be able to do something else, all you have to do is put your cursor here on the chart and press with your left mouse button. And you see our little expansion circles come back onto it. So say we want to move this chart from this location, maybe underneath all of our data. So it's out of the way so we can still keep doing stuff. What you want to do is place your mouse on the chart itself. Then you want to click with your left mouse button and continue to hold it depressed. See that your cursor has now changed to a cross pattern with arrows pointing in the 4 different directions. While you're holding your left mouse button down, you can drag your chart to another location of your screen. As soon as you release your left mouse button, it will remain in that spot that you've placed it on. That allows you to move it around the chart on the worksheet itself. Well, let's say that you want to actually move it to a different location. All right. You want to come up here to your chart tools here up on the top of your screen. You want to click on the one that says design. And this last option here under our location group says move chart. If you click on this action button, you get a little pick list come up, or a little pop-up window that comes up here. And it assumes here that you want to keep it inside of the sheet that you're working on, or you can actually add it to a new sheet. And that's what I want to do. I want to go ahead and add this one here to a new sheet. And now I can actually title this as something different. So all you have to do is just click over here into this bar, backspace off of the name, and add sample chart 1, and then hit OK. All right. What you'll see is that the chart has now been removed from our original worksheet and actually put onto a new worksheet. So if you look down here in your lower left corner of your screen, you see here are the tabs. And here is the tab that we've just created, sample chart 1, which all it does is it holds this particular chart all by itself. Sheet 1 I'm going to click back onto it just by clicking on its name. Comes back, and here is our data right inside of here. Our chart is gone. Why? Because it's now here on the other chart. This allows you to keep adding all of your statistics without changing the chart over onto the other side or affecting where its placement is if you have to move it at a later date. Some advantages of having that is, say you do, like myself, statistics monthly, and at that particular month time, you have your data inputted and you bring it, you create your chart for it. You can put it onto a separate sheet and you say January 2021. You keep adding statistics in for February as the year goes on. You come up to your totals for February. You create a chart. You put it on a new sheet labeled February 2021. Your January is not overwritten. It's just on a different sheet all by itself. And you have your yearly totals as you go march right along. But the first chart you have will not be affected by the future ones that you create. All right, so let's go ahead and make another chart. But this time I'm going to create a chart with their data separated by the columns. So for instance, I want to create a chart that has these same labels, red, yellow, blue, green, and orange, but I want the data to now be included is the ones in column C. So the easiest way to do that is to highlight this column here. So I've clicked on cell A1 to the starting point, held down my shift key, and then used my left mouse button to click on the word orange. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select C6 by holding down my control key on my keyboard. And while I do that, I also click with my left mouse button on C6. And this one, I'm not sure. Yes, if you hold down my shift key and then choose the cell C5, which has my last data point of 22, you now have got two columns, but which are separated that we've identified that we want to create a chart for. So I'm going to come back up to my top here where I'm clicking the Insert tab. My ribbon unfurls. Here's my chart group. Here's my pie group. I'm just going to choose my 2D. And what this has created is a pie chart based off of these labels here and this data here. All right, so right now we've covered how to create a pie chart with data together, side by side, adjacent to one another. We've created a chart which has the data separated spatially by a column. And we've also taken a chart and we've placed it onto the same worksheet, as well as relocated it to a brand new sheet if that was our desire. Now let's take a look at the actual chart itself and do some manipulation on it and make it ready for presentation purposes. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to do here is I want to go ahead and I want to look at the different chart elements to see whether or not I want to keep them there or place them in a different location. So up here under my chart tools, okay, we're going to stay on the design tab. This is the one that is with a white background. Over here on the far left side, we have under our chart layouts group, we had add a chart layout, a chart element. If I click on this, you have the different options that are available to you for a pie chart. If we were using a different type of chart, whether it be a bar or a line or trend lines, that sort of thing, these other options here, of line, trend lines, up and down bars would be highlighted. Right now with a pie chart, all we have are three. We have chart title, we have data labels, and we have a legend. And what we can do with each one of these areas is tell our Excel, do we want to keep this particular item on our chart, or do we want to relocate it around the chart itself? So for instance, under chart title, if you just take your mouse and you just hover there, you see this additional little list come over here. And if we move our mouse over to it and we actually just hover it, we're not clicking on it, we'll actually see it appear on our worksheet what that change would look like. So in this case, we're removing the chart title off of the look of our chart. If we want to keep it above, this is what it originally proposes to us. Or if we want to center it over the overlay, meaning that we want to have the chart, the pie itself expanded to as large as it can possibly be, and our chart title would then overlay on top of it, but it could be potentially hidden, like you see here, that may not be the most suitable for our audience to see. I kind of like it with it over top of it just because it's fully explainable, and I don't have to add anything else to it. So I can keep that there. Let's go back here again to add chart elements and look at what happens with the other items. All right, on my data labels, right now, it's set for none, meaning that there's nothing on my chart that says what each one of, or how many of these particular colors are being used to create or generate this particular pie chart. So I'm bringing my mouse over here to the word none. And again, you don't see a change. Why? Because there are no data labels out there on it yet. If I put it in the center, now you see the numbers that were actually used to generate this chart. You have to ask yourself, do these numbers portray the information that my audience needs to see? If they don't want to see the actual numbers behind it, we have to do something a little bit different, and we'll do that in a second. We'll change it to percentages, but this is just the placement. This is towards the end of it, so versus the center of the pie. This is towards the outside. This is outside it. Best fit, it'll automatically kind of calculate it for you. Or you have a data call out, so you actually have similar to like a cartoon sort of effect, in that it will actually point in directly, point to which one it is. This may seem a duplicate of the legend down at the bottom, so you need to ask yourself, does this make sense? Does it not? I kind of leave it, I want to leave it at none for right now, just because we're going to do something a little bit different in a second. All right, and the last thing that's going to be talked about is here is the legend. So if we come back up here to our chart layouts and we look at the legend, this is the placement of it. I'm going to bring my mouse over here to where it says none. You can see the legend is actually removed. All right. In most cases, whenever you do present a chart, you do want to have some sort of legend so people know what it is that each one of these pie wedges do correspond with. So having it as none is usually not favorable. You can have it over to the right, and it just takes your chart itself, shifts it over towards the left, and then you have your legend there on the right-hand side. You can have it above, so it's immediately below the word chart title. You can have it on the left side, or you can have it on the bottom. Really, it's over to you as to where you want its placement. I kind of like it to the right. It's kind of a standard out there, but you're welcome to put it anywhere that you want. One feature of having it either to the right or to the left is that Excel will automatically resize your pie to be able to fill the available white space that you have left there. If it is on the top or the bottom of it, the pie itself will shrink. So keep that in mind. So when I click on right with my left mouse button, it will automatically take that correction and apply it onto the chart so it's retained. All right. So while we're here and we still do have our chart title kind of highlighted for editing purposes, and how do I see that? I see these little blue buttons or circles here on either corner. All right. And you see as I get my mouse close to it, all right, my cursor changes from an arrow with the little line, so it says that I can move it if I want to, but if I actually put it on top of the word chart title, it changes to the ability for me to edit it. So if I actually click with my left mouse button there at the end of the word title, I've put a prompt in it. It's in there blinking at me, and I can backspace over this and put in pie chart of colors. All I have to do is just type on it, and it would automatically do the correction of what this pie chart is actually portraying to people. To get off of your editing of the title, all you have to do is you can either click here anywhere on the workspace to get off of it, but that does get rid of all of your editing process here on this chart. Another option that you have is you could actually just press the escape key on your keyboard. But I'm not finished editing my chart, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put my cursor on the chart itself and left mouse click. So we see we're back onto the editing format. So I'm going to come back over here. Again, we're still under our design tab. Under our chart layout, we have what's called quick layout. So I want to show you this because this is a real quick way to be able to change the look of your chart. All right, if I click on it, you see some different options that appear immediately below. Again, I'm just going to put my mouse on there, not click on it, do anything, but this at least gives me a little bit of an option to see kind of what was going to appear. This allowed me to switch from number format. If you remember from add chart elements, when we did data labels, it actually put the true number behind it. Under quick layout, this is where we can convert over to percentages. All right, so this shows the name, the label of orange, okay, with 31%. It calculates that percentage. If I want it on the pie wedge itself, this keeps the percentages but puts the legend above the chart. This doesn't show anything. It removes the table. All right. This gives a similar look to what I had wanted before with the legend on the right, but it shows the percentages labeled right on top of each of the pie wedge. Again, we just go back to colors, nothing else. This gives a number, and then the last one here just removes everything. Let's see here, this is the one that I was looking for right here. All right, this is the one that keeps my percentages as well as my legend. So if I click on that, it will automatically keep that there. All right, if you decide that the color scheme that Microsoft Excel automatically assigns to your graph is not one that you particularly like, you do have some options to change what these color schemes are. Up here under chart styles grouping, okay, you have change colors. If you click on that, the one that's highlighted here on the top is the one that is defaulting to right now. But your other options that you have are all of these other ones. Okay, so you could change it to here, and just by putting your mouse over top of it, not clicking on it, but just hovering, gives you what it would look like if you did decide to switch it to this. All right, this is with each one of the pie wedges a different shade, but you could easily use it as a monochromatic, which would be different shades. What you want to look at and what would make the easiest for your information to be read and processed by your audience. You should always be designing charts or any sort of visual material for your audience. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and keep this standard. The other option that you have up here is whether or not you want to change the background look of your chart here. It's going to default here to a white background. You do have the ability to instead take and do like a cross hatching, putting with a kind of like a gray highlighted background behind it. This one here just outlines everything. And again, you're looking for what would be best suited for your audience, not what looks pretty on your screen, but what would look good if you were going to broadcast this up on a screen in front of a lot of people. Many times what looks pretty on what we see here on our computer does not translate well when you have to present well to an outside group. Usually what they rely on is some sort of solid background behind it, and then something like this, or you keep the white, which I'm going to go ahead and keep. But this is just how you would have the option. Those are everything that you have underneath the design side. Let's switch over gears now to over towards the format and see what we can do right over in here. And there's a couple things that you want to consider when you create any sort of chart off of this particular section. First of all is the shape outline. Right now, when I click here on the chart, the only thing that is showing these little round circles is the overall outline. That means that I can adjust what's happening on the overall look of the chart. What I want to do is I want to add a black border around my chart. Right now, there's nothing there. I want to add a black border. Reason why is when I transport it from Excel and put it over onto Word or PowerPoint, I like to have that black band only because it does a visual separation from either the text or another object, and it focuses people's attention, and this is all the information banded together. All right, so right now, if you click on shape outline here, you get this pick list. Here are all the colors that correspond. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose black. You see it now appearing here on your chart. Now, if you happen to have an earlier version of Excel, you will not see it appear immediately. All right. So to be able to actually witness the effect of your change, you will have to press either the escape key to come off the chart or to click anywhere here on the workspace to be able to witness your change. So just keep that in mind if you're using an older version of Excel. Now this puts a very slender, dark color around the outside of my chart. If I wanted it to be slightly thicker, I can easily do that. So I'm just putting my mouse again back on the chart, left mouse clicking. Up here on the top under Chart Tools with the Format tab highlighted, I'm going to again click on Shape Outline, and down here where you see Weight, it defaults to 3/4 point, but I can increase it to something much heavier if I want to. I kind of like the looks of what it defaults to, but if you prefer to have something very, very bright or larger, you can easily do that, or you can easily go even slender. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep it there. Now, coming back to my point of kind of keeping your background sort of neutral, you do have the option of being able to switch this in color if you do want to have that happen. To do that, you just have to click Shape Fill. Again, here are your color options here, and just by hovering on it, you can see it fill in the background. Again, keep in mind that you want it to be something that enhances your presentation without taking away from what the chart has to portray to the audience. As you can tell, is if I went over here onto the yellow, while the yellow can easily pop the chart title and the legend out, the pie wedges kind of fade a little bit, and especially the text that's on them that portrays my percentage, I can't see as well. So keeping it a very light neutral shade allows the true information, which is the percentages, to pop out. It's your option if you want to change that background color, or you can just definitely leave it at white if you want to. But that does give you some options, so I do want to point that out to you. All right, at this point, you've kind of created your chart as you want. You do have some ways to be able to make it a little bit more graphic, more telling. Right now, all of these pie wedges, you can see this little white line that separates them. They are partially exploded, meaning that they are all separated from one another. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this, and we're going to actually elevate one of these pieces out a little bit farther than the others. Okay. So to do that, you put your mouse here on the actual chart itself. And I'm going to actually explode out this 31% a little bit. Okay. So you want to put your mouse cursor right here on the 31%, and you want to click on it. First click highlights the entire pie. Okay. You see the little dots here on each one of these endpoints. But I want to just do the 31%. So I want to click it one more time. And now you see the blue dots are here at the endpoint only of the 31%. So any change that I now make will only be on this one wedge alone. Now I want to go ahead and I want to do a right mouse click while my cursor is on this wedge. And when I do that, I get this little pick list. It gives me some options of different things I can do. If I want to change this color of 31% only, I can do that. Here's my fill option right here. If I click that, here I can change it to something very specific if I wanted it to be. Let's put it as bright red. And you see it happening here behind it. Okay. If I wanted to do an outline, I do have that ability to do it here. I'm going to right click it one more time because I want to get this bottom set of options here. And this last one here where it says data point, I want you to click on that. Over on the right-hand side of your screen, and again, I'm going to move my little visual of our faces here out of the way, just so we can get a little bit closer over here. We have a pop-up appear here on our right-hand side of the screen, and this allows us to do some additional action items on this wedge. All right, this last option here says point explosion. Right now it's set to 0, but you can either click on the slider bar with your left mouse button and hold it and drag it. Drag it out to a particular number, let's say 90%. And then when you release it, the left mouse button, your wedge explodes back there. You can either type it in here, use this downward arrow, or use the slider bar. But that brings it and allows it to be exploded out away from the rest of the pie. So if you were in part of your presentation to a group of individuals and you really wanted their attention to focus on this bright red pie wedge, by exploding it out just a tiny bit, you draw their attention to that specific one, as well as the color definitely draws their attention to it too. But that's how you can actually explode it at that point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just click here off. And that's my first chart. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move it So I'm just going to click on it one more time, and then I'm just going to drag it over here to the end. And I'm going to create one more chart. Do something different with it. I'm just redoing everything that we just did real quick. And so now this is at the same point that the other one was, but I'm not going to explode it. The reason why the numbers are different is because I use column B for these values. This particular graph that we have here on the left-hand side was created using column C. Now, say that I want to take this pie wedge, but I don't like it to be right up here towards the top, okay? I want to kind of bring it over to the side a little bit. I think people are going to lose sight of what this little bitty wedge is. So I actually want to change this and bring it down a little bit. How can I rotate it? If I take my mouse and I click here onto the pie, all right, and then I click it one more time with a right click to do Format Data Series. Okay. I kept the whole pie. All I did was just do a right mouse click. I didn't double click on a pie wedge or anything like that. I just clicked once on the pie, and then I did a right mouse click and selected Format Data Points to get it back here. You'll notice that we have our pie explosion. This is if we wanted to take all of our wedges and bring them out a little bit. I can change that 1, 2, 3. You can see them, they're kind of separating just a tiny bit more. All right. But then I want to take this 7% and I want to rotate it a little bit more. Right now it assumes it's 0. All right. I can actually change this number to, I'm just clicking the up arrow, and you can see my pie actually rotating around my screen. Keep in mind that if you want to type this in, it does not accept negative numbers. You have to use positive only. So by putting my 33 almost like square upright, I now have my 7% down here. And that makes it a little bit easier to read, considering where it was right up here, and it was kind of hidden by the title a little bit. The 33 is very easily discernible simply because it's such a large wedge that's immediately below the title. And the 33% is easily read. The 7%, now that it's over here towards the horizontal, is a lot easier to see. So consider that as another option for you when you create your chart of how do my wedges look and where does it make sense for the wedges to be located. All right, if I click anywhere here on my chart, you can actually see now the changes that we've made. So on the chart on the left, we exploded just one wedge out. Over here on the chart on the right, we took all of our wedges and exploded them just a tiny little bit out, but we also rotated our wedges to make our 7% pie wedge a little bit easier to see and to read. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click anywhere up here in my work area. And I'm going to highlight this information here, my data series, one more time. I'm going to hit copy, but I'm going to create it on a new sheet just so we can keep working here. And I'm going to enlarge it a little bit. So again, you see what I'm doing. And if you've never worked before, on the lower right corner of your screen, okay, in Excel, there is a little bitty scale here. It usually defaults to 100%, but you can easily either click on the plus or the minus at either side, and your workspace will enlarge for you. It's a real quick way to zoom in or zoom back out of your work. All right, so this is just to allow us to have further space to create some more charts for ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create one last chart. Okay. And what we're going to do is we are going to create what's called like a blowout, okay, where we want to have a set of items that are underneath a certain percentage, but it's very hard to see because the wedges become very small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to correct a couple of these numbers. So I create pie wedges that are very, very small. Now, say for instance, you want to add an additional column inside of here or additional row of data, and you still want to include it inside of your chart. All right, this is possible if you insert a row. Okay, so what I did is I just clicked on the row label of 2, and up here under my home tab, I just hit the word insert. All right, I have got a row inserted inside of my worksheet. But notice here also on my chart, I've already got a new label already created for me, a new color label in anticipation of me putting in some information. So let me go ahead and put this as purple. Okay, and then I'm just going to put a number here. All right. So now you see this new little item here, and it's 3%. Now, because it's so small, the percentage is actually outside the pie. It automatically adjusts all of my percentages here because, again, this is a proportional or total of all of these figures put together, and this is how much each one contributes to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update my red to, let's say, a lower number. 4, and take my yellow and do a 8. Okay, and we'll put one more number inside of here. And let's see, a color of a, let's just do white. A 10. All right, so you can actually see how I generate some additional wedges inside of my pie chart just by inserting the lines and then adding my data points. It automatically updates here and recalculates percentage wise. Now, a couple of these numbers here are very, very small. So what we want to do is I want to blow those out so they make it a lot easier for me to see. In fact, I'm going to change my blue to a little bit higher number so I need to get my white a little bit. And this one is 28. All right. The reason why I was doing that is I want to get at least 3 of these wedges to be smaller than a certain value. And you'll see why in just a second. I want to be able to show you some differences here. Okay, so these are becoming a little bit harder to see because the wedges are getting smaller and smaller. So what I want to do is I want to edit the chart. So I'm just going to take my mouse, I'm just going to click on the chart. Here's my expansion bubble, so it says that I'm in edit mode. And I'm going to go up here to the design. Okay, under chart tools. Over here on the far right hand side, we have change chart type. I'm going to click on that, and it will show me all the ones that are available to me here as a pie chart. Okay. We have the option of switching it to any of the other ones if we want, but this one is our pie chart, and here's what our chart looks like right now. If we wanted to change to a 3D, this would be here, but this is the ones that I want to show you right here, okay, which is pie of pie and bar of pie. What we can do is we can actually specify with a pie chart to take our smallest levels and create a separate chart to the side that would be able to further give our audience members more information about these small wedges. I personally do not like pie of pie only because it gives the assumption that even though this is the smaller chunks, it doesn't accurately portray the true size of what these wedges are. I can show you what it looks like, but then I'm going to change it over here to bar of pie, which I find to be much more valuable and understandable. Let me show you what pie of pie looks like. So I'm going to just click on pie of pie, and then I'm going to hit OK. So you just see what it looks like. Now, it doesn't look like exactly what we want to just yet, but I want you to see what is showing you. Excel automatically assumes and takes randomly 2 or 3 of the pie wedges, and it strips it off and puts it over to the side, in this case over here to the right. And it recolors this area and says it's 73%, and these, of this 73%, these are your 3 main components of it. And it creates its own little pie chart here. It does have these are the same values that in the original chart that you had. However, 23% looks like it is truly much greater than that. It looks more like a 45% based on the size of the wedge, okay? This is where I told you that a pie chart can be very misleading. In this particular case, with a pie of pie chart, this does not look like 18%. This looks like almost 25% based on here's what we normally think of with a full circle, and we split it into quarter pieces, okay? That's why I don't like this one, because these wedges become a little bit more elongated and exploded and swelled more so than what they truly should be. So if I instead want to switch it to a different and do the bar of pie, this takes those same 3 wedges, but instead puts them on top of one another with their values to the side for easy reading, but it doesn't create a pie wedge that would potentially misrepresent the data. That's why I like the bar of pie a lot better. Now let's go ahead and switch this so it is just these 3 that are small numbers versus this big huge wedge here. All right, so what I want to do is I want to take my cursor, put it on the pie itself. I want to just click it once, and then I want to right click, and I want to do Format Data Series. All right, we have some options that we can do here. All right, first thing here is the second plot size. What this is talking about is our bar. It defaults to 75%. And what that means is this is 75% the size of our original chart over here, our original pie. We can actually make it smaller if we want. And you see how the bar graph side just got a little bit smaller. It's all visual at that with this perspective, so it's really just it's how you want your graphic to look at this point as to whether or not you want to update that. All right, the gap width, this is the amount of distance between the original chart here on the left and the bar graph here on the right. I usually don't update that because you want some visual separation between the two to make it readable. All right, pie explosion, we've already talked about that. That's the difference between each one of our wedges here. Right now, we'll keep them at 0. All right, but this top section here is where I want to talk to you about. All right, right now, it is split by position, so it automatically assumed that you wanted to take the top 3, okay, by position, top 3 values. But you can change this to percentage value. So if I click on this downward facing arrow, and I choose percentage value, it defaults as a starting point with Excel of 10%. You can easily update this to either be higher in number or lower in number, whatever. But what it has done now is it took those 3 wedges that were very small off the original pie chart and brought them over here instead. So you actually can read what those smaller items are. The larger ones get retained as you see here, and you now see your breakout. It's a lot easier to see smaller wedges in that particular regard. So that is a bar of pie chart. I like those. They're very explanatory, and they allow those smaller areas to be readable. All right, the last one I'm going to show you real quick is going to be how to create a half of a pie or half of a donut and be able to put additional graphic items on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create 2 things. Okay, one, you're going to have to add 1 additional piece here. All right, so I just moved this down for a second. With a half of a pie or half of a donut, okay, you are actually going to take and you're going to wipe out or whiten out half of the pie chart that you're going to be creating. All right, so to do that, you have to actually add 1 additional thing onto your data and then include that inside the chart. So what you want to do is you want to add the word subtotal, and you can label it really anything that you want. But what you want to do is you want to create a sum. So to do that, you can either type in the formula or up here under your home tab, all the way over here on the right-hand side, you can do auto sum. You confirm that this is the data that it's highlighting here that you want to have summarized. If it is, all you have to do is press the enter key and you get a sum. All right, now to create our pie chart, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight our data. Oops. All right, but see now I've also included my subtotal area here in my chart. I'm going to insert pie graph. Move it over here out of the way so we can work on it a little bit easier and everybody can see it. All right, and this big gray chunk right here represents our subtotal area. So what we want to do is a couple things. While it is still as a color and I can see it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm first going to rotate our pie graph to get this horizontal. And then we'll do some work here with this bottom half to remove something. Okay. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cursor here on my pie and I'm going to click on it just to highlight it. You can see it's all edited. We can edit it now. I'm going to right click it and do format data series. So the first thing I want to do is I want to rotate. So here's my angle. All right, now I know what this is going to be, so I'm just going to type this in, which is 270. All right, and it's taken my pie, rotated it around 270 degrees, and now it's completely horizontal. Here's all my pie wedges of interest. here is my subtotal right here. All right, so now I want to edit just my subtotal. So I'm going to put my cursor right here on this big gray or big brown pie wedge. I'm going to click it with my left mouse button. So now I can just edit just this wedge here. I'm now going to right click. I'm going to change my fill up here on the top. And I'm going to put no fill. You now see it has disappeared from view, and now I'm left with just the pie wedge itself. At this point, we may want to consider that you want to add maybe a line or something like this. Okay. So to do this, we're going to be getting off of our chart tools tabs up on the top here, and we're actually going to go back onto our main insert tab. And I'm going to do a shape here under illustrations. And let's do an arrow right here. Off of my recently used shapes, I'm going to use an arrow. Okay, I'm going to come back down here onto my chart. Now notice that my cursor is no longer a arrow, but now it is a cross. All right, what you want to do is you want to pick your point here that you want to start your arrow at. This will be your end point. You're going to click and you want to hold down with your left mouse button. Drag it up to wherever you want it to end. All right. And now you have an arrow at this point. Now, you can change the color of it because you see over here on our right-hand side, we automatically get some formatting of the shapes, as well as up here on our ribbon. You also see those same opportunities up here. So if we want to change the color, I'm going to focus here on my right-hand side. It's defaulting to a blue. If I want to change that to something much darker, like the black, I can click on that, and now it changes to a black. If I want to change how thick it is, right now it's defaulting here to a width of 0.5. I can increase that. And you see how the thickness of my arrow gets a lot brighter and more discernible. All right. If you wanted to change, I'm just going to move my little graphics of what the class participants are just to the top of the screen momentarily. If you want to change what your beginning arrow size is, you can do that here, or you can do your end arrow type to change it from there also. Okay. If you wanted to move your starting point here from where we have it down here to actually to maybe right here at the start of the center point of our pie, you can take your mouse and you can put it right on top of that circle. You'll see that the cursor changes from the arrow with the little crosshatch to one that just has it's a line with two arrows on it. You click with your left mouse button and you hold it, and then you drag it to your final position. And so I'm going to kind of eyeball it here to the center. And now when you release your left mouse button, it will actually retain that position. And now you've got it actually inserted onto your chart. So if any of you have ever seen one of those graphics of, almost looks like the accelerator dial on a car, in which you want to say, okay, we are this far into our project, and put a label on it, we can do so. So here's how we would put an arrow on it. Let's go ahead and actually create that statement that we are, let's say, roughly 80% completed with our project. So what we want to do is we want to come back over here to insert. Actually, we can click anywhere here on the chart just to get off of the arrow. Then we come back over here to our insert tab. And we're going to bypass shapes, icons, and all this sort of stuff. Keep going over here farther to the right. We're going to do text box. When I click on the text box, note that my cursor changes now to a crosshatch, but the horizontal line is down towards the base. What you want to do is you want to click with your left mouse button, position onto your chart, drag it to the left, still while holding it depressed, and then bring it down a little bit. And what you're doing is you're creating a box. This is where you would be entering text. When you release your left mouse button, you now see the text box displayed and you have a cursor sitting there blinking at you. What you want to do is you want to type in then your text. So let's say 80% completed. All right, it automatically assumes that you want this to be left or aligned, okay, meaning that your text starts here against the left side of your box. If you prefer to have it centered, okay, what you do is up here under the Home tab, click Center under here under Alignment, and it will automatically center it inside of the box. If you'd like for the text to be increased in size, all you have to do is highlight it there with your mouse. And again, up here under the Home tab, you can change it to a larger size if you want, as well as bold it. If you like what it looks like, all you have to do is either press your Escape key or click anywhere on the chart to get back off of it. If you ever want to move this a little bit closer to your chart, all you have to do is take your mouse, put it right on top of one of the words, doesn't matter which, click anywhere on it, you get the box back. But to move it, you're going to have to click it one more time right here on the edge of the box to say, I don't want to edit my text, but I do want to move my box, and you can move it up. So let me do that again. First, I clicked on it, you see the cursor sitting there blinking. I said, I don't want to do that. I want to click here again on just the outside. So now you see the cursor is gone, but you can move it up a little bit, which is what I did. And then clicked on the chart to get it blanked out. Now, say for instance, you want to remove or blank out these last three little wedges, okay? So when you show that this is 80% complete, you still have this amount left to do. So how would I change the color or appearance of these last three? All right, so what we would do, we've done this before, let's try to do it again. We're just going to take our mouse, click on the pie itself. We want to click it one more time with our left mouse button just to get that one wedge. All right, I'm going to do a right click. I want to change this to an outline. So I want to make sure I have an outline on it. I want to change my weight of the line because right now it's very dark. Let's try 3/4. And then I want to come back here and I want to change it to white. Okay, and click off. I'm going to do the same thing with the little red one. So I'm going to right click it. I'm going to change my outline to black. Verify that my weight is back down to 3/4. And I'm going to change my fill to white. The last one here with the little blue. All right, now these final little lines here, we can get it if we outline the rest of them. But you get the gist of it here, where when we say we're 80% complete, we see the wedges that are done. They could represent different phases of your project, but these three that have yet to be filled in, we know that those particular phases of that project still have yet to be completed. You get the gist of what that is going to be. All right, the last thing I just want to show you is, like I said, the power of Excel is that it allows you to do a lot of analysis of your data, but then you want to transfer it over onto another document. So let me just show you what all you have to do with that. You've got your chart looking very nice and neat, okay? You click on it just to show that this is what you want to capture right here, all right? You're not going to edit it, you're just highlighting it as if you were going to edit, but you're not going to. Up on your home tab, just hit copy, all right? It's now inside of your memory. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stop my share briefly. And then I'm going to open up my Word document. So if I'm in my Microsoft Word, here's our document that we're getting set to do. If I click here, this is where I would want to add this particular chart. Over here under my paste, if I click on this, all right, you have the option of here's my chart. It's already outlined as we defined over there on the other piece. Here's my legend already created. Here's my numbers already in it, labeled. If we have any additional things that we just inserted, we could do, with our arrow, we could do a text box to add particular pieces of information. But we are now inside of our document and we can continue to keep typing at this point. But we've got our numbers true matching over there, and we're not trying to do it right inside of Microsoft Word. So at this point, I was going to open the floor up to any questions. If there are none, then all I can say is please check back here at the Leesburg Library for our various different technology classes. We'll be offering more coming up, as well as next month. So does anyone have any questions at this point? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop my share. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop our recording.
How soon do you send the link out for the recorded session for review?
I should send it probably within either an hour or 2 hours from now.